Hello, hello, hello. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about another mysterious Clinton aide death. And I posted this the other day, last night. I don't think it got a ton of traction because it was pretty late when I posted it. And I said I'm not a conspiracy theorist person. I don't get deep into that kind of stuff. I mean, there's always the jokes about Clintons and people that they know not being alive when they have information. It's like a big cultural joke and stuff, but there have been mysterious things. And Daily Mail reported that a family Clinton advisor to block a release of files related to his death, and it just doesn't seem like something didn't happen. So I'm just gonna read the story. You can decide for yourselves, but I don't know how many people hang themselves and then shoot themselves in the chest with a shotgun. And they want to hide the scene stuff because they don't want to fuel conspiracy. But do people not realize that they fuel conspiracy that way? So anyway, I want to talk about that. January 6th committee meetings and stuff. They're going to I guess do the findings on like live sort of prime time, which that's unusual. There's definitely been other sort of committee hearings that were really important that still were just kind of like middle of the day kind of stuff. And New York Times even did like a report that said Democrats try to use January 6th to change the election narrative or something for midterms, which I'm paraphrasing, but essentially what it was. And it's like, oh, you guys are admitting that's what this is. It's basically a political ploy. So we're going to be talking about that. Also, we talked a little bit yesterday about how in Texas there was a drag queen show at a bar, gay bar, where there was kids underage there. The police did eventually get them out, probably because of the activists who were there shaming everybody, including the police, who weren't doing anything at first, or looked like they weren't doing anything at first. So there was a legislator in Republican in Texas who's like, oh no, we gotta pass a bill to like stop some of this stuff. So there was a state senator from California who I just saw a retweet. He retweeted like the statement that the Republican from Texas put out, and he said, oh, I know how to like bypass something like this. I have a great idea. And he says he's going to introduce legislation where Drag Queen 101 is in like school curriculum. And you might be saying, well, that is maybe a joke. I don't know. This person has pushed some really curious legislation, so I want to talk about it today. Because I'm not so sure, and it's really something that you should not joke about. And I don't understand. I went in a little rant yesterday about I don't understand why a pop culture is like obsessed with drag queens, and the only reason why they keep involving the children in this is to normalize it and just kind of introduce them to perversion. And I'm not saying like, yes, drag is gross. Like I don't care if you're offended by that. I don't care. And there's some people who are saying like they used to find it, kind of funny and comical and other stuff like that. But this is like, why would you introduce all this stuff to kids? And people are like, it's just a way to mock gender and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like a minstrel show, but instead of mocking race, you're mocking womanhood and femininity and all this other kind of stuff. So I don't think it's funny. You're free to do it, but exposing the kids that there's no reason to do that. And there's all kinds of other ways you can teach kids to be confident and fierce and, or whatever. And I don't even know if you really would say fierce so much. Just confidence is fine for the kids. There's so many different ways to do that. So we're going to be talking about all those things today. But before we jump into it, I would encourage you guys to go blacktonews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. I'm working on a video that I hope to drop tomorrow morning, afternoonish, that I think you guys are really going to like. So make sure you guys are going to Black Teen News, drop in your emails in the email list thing, and make sure that you guys are also liking the pages and following the pages. Facebook just changed their stuff around, so if you had liked the page, there I think the follows are more important now. So some people like the page but hadn't followed the page, so make sure that you have done both. I don't know if they give you the option anymore. They just really changed the pages and stuff around, but make sure that you are following Black Tea News. Make sure that you are subscribing on YouTube, and that you're subscribing and following. I think following, like TikTok has the following sort of thing, and I think that's maybe the route that people are kind of more gravitating towards. So make sure that you're hitting notification bells and all the stuff so you get news and stuff breaks in. Make sure that you guys are liking pages and sharing pages. If you like what I do here, please go to blacktnews.com/donate. Consider leaving a donation at the website. I would really appreciate that. I appreciate everyone who does support, and it does really, really, really help the website, channel, etc. I do want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. And please check out different merchandise we have on the website, like the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For, the Be Better Not Bitter, and I do have all kinds of books and stuff you guys can check out. If you go to Black Teen News, there's a banner with some of my books on there too, and it'll take you to my book website. So before we jump into the news of the day, you guys know that I like to start with something pretty humorous. So I guess this kind of just jumps right into the January 6th kind of stuff. So you guys recognize this movie, I'm sure. I don't, unless you're just like really, really young. I don't even know if I've really seen it myself, but I'm aware of like the sort of like cultural phenomenons with it, I guess, and the jokes. But the media is in the January 6th committee is really, really trying to uphold January 6th. And like I said in the opening, it's really unusual for something like this to be prime time with the committee hearings and stuff. And it's, I think it's really kind of going beyond the scope of what's normally a committee or something like that would do. And I think a lot of it is for people like Cheney to have this newfound respect from like verified checkmark users in the media, and and then of course Democrats are. I think it'll be something that can maybe help them in the midterms and try to turn stuff around. But guys, I don't I don't understand how people are going to go back to caring for that kind of stuff. It may be like some juicy conversations for some people. I'm sure there'll be people on the left who will do some TikToks about it, and it'll make some, conversation on MSNBC and so on. But as long as people have to go outside and go to the gas station and pump the gas, and it's like 5:29, I think that's your real problem. I made sure that I went to the gas station last night before. I'm like, I don't want to wake up and be like, another 10 cents, 20 cents or something. So it was kind of late, a little bit before the gas station was going to close. And I said to like, I think the owner, I was like, so is I going to jump up again? Is it by the morning? And he just kind of smiled and was like, have a good night. And, and didn't answer the question. Now that gas hadn't jumped when I woke up in the morning, but, it's been pretty wild. Not just that gas is going up, but it's going up so fast. And then you had issues with the baby formula, and then Democrats passed their bill and basically to just give more money to the FDA, when Republicans had a bill that would address some more issues. And then the media and leftists are like, oh my gosh, Republicans didn't support the bill after they complained about the baby formula. Don't they actually care about the children? Yeah, they care about the children, but they don't want to just give more money to the FDA so they can give themselves raises. That's a problem. Like, we actually want to like solve a crisis instead of just learning how we can just line our pockets, taking advantage so we can line our pockets in these types of situations. So I just don't. I think people got bored pretty fast. I think faster than what they were hoping, and that's why one reason why they had to do the committee. which the committee has taken some extraordinary steps to get some information that really were breaches and invasions of people's privacies and stomping on some people's rights. Like, people were informed, like, hey, the committee is going to get these records, like, from different phone companies like Verizon and other folks. I'm not mistaken, I think it was Verizon, but they're just let people know, like, hey, we're going to turn this stuff over unless you are going to find some kind of legal way to stop us. We're just going to give them this information. And they're like tracking people who weren't even there, but like maybe who like helped to arrange different stuff from out of town. One thing that was pretty fascinating, I didn't see all of 2000 Mules, but I saw a little bit at a friend's fundraiser who showed um, quite a bit of it. And one thing I thought was interesting when they're talking about geo tracking, they said that a lot of people will use geo tracking now, like tracking locations and stuff in your phone. And they claimed that that how fast they got so many people after January 6th, they probably were tracking some people of interest before they even got there, before anything went down. And I my mouth dropped when they said that, and I'm like, well, that makes sense if that's the case. And I'm like, that's pretty messed up. That's pretty messed up if that's the case. And maybe they just, I don't know, monitor people talking about it on Facebook, or people who are going to things like Stop the Steal and whatever, and just wanted to track them and see where they would go. I mean, I didn't end up going to, and I wouldn't have gone to DC for the January 6th thing, but I have been to a Stop the Steal rally or two and dinner. And when I would talk and speak, I would talk about like the election being stolen. I would talk about the role that the media played, and the role that they did with like suppressing the Hunter Biden story, and the way that they framed how America was basically the most evil, awful, racist thing in the country, and how they also like included Trump and other Americans in it. And the way to solve that crisis was to vote for Biden, and how the I think Time Magazine put out that article saying how they fortified the election. I would mention stuff like that. I like to say that I believe Trump legitimately lost a rigged election. So how I like to put it, because they use all these levers of power, including like bring the whole world basically to a halt to get this man out of office. And it totally immoral what happened. So anyway, I'm saying if that's the way they're tracking people, they could have been like looking at my phone or something. And if I went there, they could have had someone like waiting for me by the time I got back, if they were doing like a geo tracking sort of thing the whole entire time. So that was fascinating, the sort of claim that they were making in the 2000 Mules, and how much people really use geo tracking. And it made sense. I'm not saying that I haven't read something in the media that that's what they did, but again, it made sense, because it was really fast how they were just getting everybody. And if their government is quite that competent, they have to explain why they've dropped the balls on quite a few things, like people of interest, school shootings, and other stuff like that. And but they can find you if you had a sign on January 6th and didn't go inside the Capitol. You know, but they've been obsessed with this for a very long time, and it maybe they were hoping it would carry steam throughout the 2 years and whatnot, that it would be able to save them in the midterms, that people would oust all these folks, that Democrats would just have supreme sort of rule. But it hasn't even helped from this point on. Their ratings now have been in the tank for a minute. And I mean, at first everything was really hot, and then they were spreading a lot of misinformation. There's people who still probably believe that multiple people were killed in January 6th, when the person who was killed was Ashley Babbitt, one of the protesters. So they're gonna have their spiel, Liz Cheney and all of them. They're gonna have fun, I guess, with it, or try to make it a big deal. I hope their numbers are trash. I don't plan to watch any of that stuff. I may see if it trends on Twitter a little bit, and pick up a clip or two, and we might talk about it if something interesting happens. But a lot of stuff that they're probably going to talk about are things that probably a lot of people know. And I mean, they arrested a lot of people, held people without, it seemed like, really giving them their due diligence as far as justice goes. And Brandon Straka, who started the walkaway movement, talked a little bit how he was held, and it seemed pretty inhumane. um, so they really really want to make it an insurrection. Scott Adams said that CNN and these places believe that Americans are willing to go armed everywhere except when they plan an insurrection. um, because if people really 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 did want to overthrow the government in that sort of way, they did a piss poor job of plotting an insurrection. And a lot of these people, whether you agree with them or not, really did believe that the election was stolen, and that they were making a case to petition their government to at least look at some more evidence that they felt that they had. And so again, you can not agree with these people in the least bit. You can think they're crazy and whatnot, but they weren't going there to overthrow the government. They were going there to at their last kind of ditch effort for the government to do the right thing and from their eyes. So no, they weren't planning. You can say they're misguided again, but to believe that they were coming for an insurrection, I don't think that that's how people do insurrections. I'm telling you, these people got guns. I know quite a few people who I don't think I knew anyone who went inside of the Capitol. Actually, I met one person who said that they did go inside the Capitol and he was being like investigated. Um, but I don't know that person. I just met someone. But I think everyone that I know who went there just went to like the rally, but did not go in the Capitol. I don't know if they even. I don't even know if I know anyone who actually went to the Capitol as opposed to just like where the rally was. And a lot of people just kind of had a kumbaya, we love each other, taking pictures with people with flags, American flags, and we love Trump signs and stuff like that. So there were people who did illegal things, there were people who trespassed, there were people who were violent. That stuff is true, and people did bad things, and it was a riot. And visually, it was absolutely awful. Um, but to make it into something like Biden makes it seem like it's the worst thing that has happened to our nation. It's within like 2 hours, they went ahead and they certified the vote. And again, the only person who did die from that was Ashley Babbitt. There have been actual terrorist attacks like on the Capitol. And I have not forgotten, I've absolutely not forgotten the summer of 2020 and all of the chaos that ensued during that time, and that our uh, Kamala Harris retweeted that thing to help raise money to get people out, the way they undermined cops. During the debate with Trump and Biden, Biden had made a comment like he was in charge of the Democrat Party. That's what Biden said, a comment. And Chris Wallace asked, like, have you reached out to some of these mayors and governors and etc., just trying to urge them to ask, uh, try to convince them to get some kind of federal assistance to handle some of the riots and get some of the crime down. Biden was just like, why would they listen to me? No, I haven't done that. I haven't picked up the phone. It's like, why wouldn't you, from your perspective of someone who's trying to be the president, try to squash some of this stuff, to try to temper it down? And they didn't want to because they thought it was politically advantageous. Like they thought it was a benefit to them in the long run, despite like how much property damage there were, despite people actually dying in these riots. um they thought it served a greater purpose, and they downplayed how violent they were. We did an episode when we went pretty in detail during the Rittenhouse trial, and just flashback to some of the stuff that was going on in the streets, and how much damage was being done, not just like in areas where Rittenhouse was, but to people who were just trying to protect their own property, protect their own businesses. There was one guy who was just like he was like, don't destroy my truck. Like, get away from my truck, don't smash my truck. um there was an old man who was like clocked out, they broke his jaw. because he was trying to put out a fire, and he was like aiming like the fire extinguisher at like some people who were in the building, and they just came up and clocked him and knocked him out. And it was so awful, some of the carnage that happened. But hey, CNN called it a fiery but mostly peaceful protest. And I just really would like our nation to really get to a non-crazy point again at some point of time. And I think Americans would really appreciate some real solutions to their problems. And the January 6th committee hearings thing is really, really just about trying to save some electoral points, but I don't think that's going to happen. Again, as long as the gas is high, there's a shortage on a lot of things that people need. I went to the grocery store last night, and I'm like, things that used to be cheaper are obviously more expensive. Inflation is crazy. There's people who can't afford to go to work. There's people who have to rethink different careers that they have because their job is too far. Or even some of these people who are like, I'll just keep, you know, these jobs where you just do like Uber and DoorDash and stuff like that. That's becoming like not feasible for people because gas is so high. Like those are the things that are on people's minds, not January 6th. And I'm sure they'll try to make it something that's again on people's minds, but I don't think that's going to be able to hold up until November. But good luck to them. I mean, in a sarcastic way, I don't wish them any luck. Um anyway, let's move on. This story is pretty interesting. Um, Exclusive family of Bill Clinton advisor who admitted Jeffrey Epstein into White House 7 times has blocked release of files detailing the death scene after he was found hanging from a tree with a shotgun blast at a ranch 30 miles from his home. Um, Bruh, that's not normal. And I don't know what to say. So they allegedly don't want to release that stuff because they don't want conspiracies to sort of fly around, but that's freaking weird, right? The family of a top advisor to Bill Clinton, who admitted Jeffrey Epstein to the White House multiple times during his presidency, is putting out all the stops to keep details of his mysterious death becoming public. They have petitioned a judge to prevent pictures of Mark Middleton's death scene being released under the Freedom of Information Act. And now the local Arkansas sheriff is interpreting that to mean he can't talk or release any details of Middleton's May 7 suicide. The investigation is still open. I can't say anything more, Perry County Sheriff Scott Montgomery told DailyMail.com. Middleton, who served as special assistant to Bill Clinton in the 1990s, died at the age of 59, his family announced last month. His death adds to the number of close associates of the former president and first lady who have died unexpectedly, many in small plane crashes. The phenomenon has led to a conspiracy theory called the Clinton body count, which has even its own Wikipedia page. Middleton's family, it's not easy. I mean, it's pretty easy to create a Wikipedia page, I hear. Middleton's family did not disclose the cause of death at the time, but authorities later confirmed the former White House official took his own life with a self inflicted gunshot at an urban farm in Perryville, Arkansas. In a lawsuit filed on May 23rd, the family admitted Middleton committed suicide, and he says they have a privacy interest in preventing any photographs, videos, sketches, other illustrative content from the death scene being released. They claim it would lead to outlandish, hurtful, unsupported, and offensive articles being published online. They argued that keeping the footage and files sealed would halt a proliferation of unsubstantiated conspiracy theories. A judge is due to hear the case on June 14th. So I don't think not talking about it is going to stop conspiracy theories. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like if you were saying like you didn't want released because of the emotional damage to the family, like that is more reasonable to me than saying we can't put this out there because it's really gonna get the whistle wet for all those conspiracy theorists out there. After the petition was filed, Perry County Sheriff Scott Montgomery died oh, I'm sorry, not died, denied DailyMail.com's FOIA request for any of his paperwork on the case, which would include police report and written files, even though they do not contain any graphic images. Late last night, DailyMail.com exclusively revealed Middleton was among the Clinton advisors and aides who let Epstein into the White House during the former president's first few years in office. The late pedophile made at least 17 trips to the White House between 1993 and 1995, 7 of which were authorized by Middleton. The Clinton aide was also one of the many passengers to fly on Epstein's jet known as the Lolita Express. Middleton's family last month confirmed he passed away on May 7 in a statement which did not reveal the cause of death. It has since been confirmed that former advisor who lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, took his own life at the Heifer Ranch in Perryville, owned by an anti-poverty nonprofit called Heifer International, 30 miles away from his home. Um, Chris Cox Heifer, a spokesperson for the Heifer International, said that the ranch workers found Middleton's car in the parking lot and notified the sheriff. The body was found shortly afterwards. Heifer told DailyMail.com he wasn't invited to the property and staff became aware that he was there without authorization. We have not found any connection to Heifer. The ranch is well known in the area and it's possible that he could have attended something here, but we couldn't find any major links. The ranch hosts school groups for things like lambing, so he could have attended one of those. It's very unfortunate incident. In an interview with the Radar Online before he decided to clam up, Sheriff Montgomery said Middleton was discovered hanging from a tree with a shotgun blast to his chest. He reportedly used an extension cord as a noose and created a makeshift gallows underneath the tree, which appeared to be there as a failsafe in case the gunshot blast didn't kill him. The married father of two who ran an air conditioning business did not leave a note, though he told his family he was depressed, Montgomery said. I don't know the man. I don't know why he picked our county or picked that location to commit suicide. To our knowledge, he had never been there before, and we have no record of him being there before. He died from a self inflicted gunshot wound to the chest. He found a tree and pulled a table over there, and he got on that table and he took an extension cord and put it around a limb and it off around his neck, and he shot himself in the chest with a shotgun. It was very evident that the shotgun worked because there was not a lot of blood or anything on the scene. You can tell the shotgun blast was on his chest. You can tell that because there is a hole in the chest and the pellets came from the back of his back. It was definitely self-inflicted in our opinion. The injunction was filed 2 weeks after Middleton's death at the Circuit Court of Perry County by Rhea Middleton and Larry Middleton's widow and father. It states that they have a privacy interest in photographs, video sketches, and other illustrative content depicting Mark Middleton's body or scene of Mr. Middleton's death in the possession of Perry County Sheriff and the county coroner. The lawsuit states since Mr. Middleton's death, Mr. Middleton's family has been harassed by outlandish, hurtful, unsupported, and offensive online articles regarding Mr. Middleton, his death, and his family. These articles are baseless and malicious. Publishing images of Middleton's body would cause the family irreparable harm, they claim. And I can understand that for sure, that they don't want any more people talking about it. It's hurtful, etc. Just people talking about saying, hey, this could fuel conspiracy theories. It's already like out there. I mean, if they could just, if there was evidence that the people would just prove that, hey, it was self-inflicted and all this other kind of stuff, and there's no evidence of anybody else. This stuff's probably gonna live on, be talked about, and be added to the wiki page. Probably is. I mean, it sounds sketch, and not that someone couldn't decide, hey, I'm gonna pick this random farm to go and end it all in. But it's like a really weird way to go. And I know like the gun deaths are so high because people use gun deaths for suicide, but man, like, don't people normally to the head or something, like to the chest, and to have you hang in case it doesn't work? It just would seem like there are better ways to take yourself out. So that's just why it's weird. So I can't blame people for thinking weird things and having conspiracies and wanting to FOIA and find out a little bit more about it. I can't blame people. You can't tell me this is not weird. I'm not saying it's not possible that it went down and there's nothing nefarious happening. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think it's interesting and I wanted to share. The lawsuit seeks a declaration that any media content depicting Mr. Middleton's body or scene of Mr. Middleton's death should not be disclosed under the FOIA, the documents state. In an affidavit, Larry Middleton states that the report about his son's death have been unsubstantiated conspiracy theories which have caused unimaginable pain to myself and my family. He claims to have extreme fear and anxiety at the prospect of further details being made public. Larry Middleton writes, once disclosed, my family will face inconceivable amounts of harassment, threats, and pain from the inquiry and use of such content. The Middletons did not respond to dailymail.com request for comment. The documents from Middleton's probate file show that he had $200,000 in assets, including $100,000 worth of property. The lawsuit confirms that the Middleton died by suicide, something that was not mentioned in the announcement of his death in a Facebook post now deleted for the family's air conditioning company, Middleton Heat and Air. So, yeah, I just thought I wanted to share because, that's a weird story to me, guys. That's a weird story to me. You can tell me if I'm full of crap, but I just wanted to share. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Last thing I think I really want to get into, and I'll add something else if I have the time. But yesterday we talked about this drag queen story time thing that where it was like drag your kids to Pride. Um, so this was at a bar in Texas, which kids should not normally be able to go to because it's underage and stuff. But they were saying it was a family friendly event where they had all these kids and stuff in there. Some of the content that's been shared around is stuff that I didn't really want to share, so I didn't play too much of it yesterday, but I did play a little bit of like the drag queens teaching how to strut and other kind of stuff like that. Um, but there's that sign in the backdrop that says it's not going to lick itself. So to pretend that this was a place where anything age appropriate could possibly happen, come on, come on. And you can say, well, kids aren't going to get that. You don't. First of all, if kids can read, why wouldn't they ask what does that mean? Because kids are curious kind of creatures. You don't have to answer that question, but I question why anyone would want their children in that sort of environment, and I question why anyone would want their children around people who do pretty gross things in their careers. Like one of the drag queens that were there has a OnlyFans account. um, why would you want your kids around that sort of degeneracy? I don't understand, and I don't understand these parents that take them there. Um, and I don't understand not from that situation. I don't understand the drag time story time hour kind of stuff. But there Texas did strike back, and because this happened in Texas, it's happening like all across the country. But this particular event that people were talking about and really discussed about was in Texas. So there was a Texas legislator who's like, I'm introducing legislation. This stuff cannot happen. So I don't know if there is a bill out yet, but there was an announcement that he was gonna like do something and he put something out. And so then there's this California guy who retweeted it. Now he's a state senator, Senator Scott Weiner. And he said, this guy just gave me a bill idea offering Drag Queen 101 as part of the K through 12 curriculum. Attending Drag Queen story time will satisfy the requirement. So you could say this is a thing that he's trolling on, perhaps. Um, you could claim that. It's not something that I would joke about. Why would you suggest that? Why would you joke about that? Why would I don't understand why any well, I would say any sane person would take their kids to something like that, but I guess no sane person would. No sane person probably would do that. So why is a state California senator talking about introducing legislation so kids would have to go to attend a drag queen story time? And this particular state senator has had a curious history of particular bills. So one bill that Mr. Weiner has pushed and got successfully signed was regarding the decriminalization, or lowering the penalty rather, of knowingly exposing your partner to HIV. This is an old story because this happened. When did this happen? This is from 2017. This article from CNN. Starting January 1st, it will no longer be a felony in California to knowingly expose a sexual partner to HIV with the intent of transmitting the virus. Governor Jerry Brown signed legislation Friday that lowers the offense to a misdemeanor. The California legislature passed the bill SB 239 in September. The law previously punished people who intentionally exposed or infected others with HIV by up to 8 years in prison. The new legislation will lower jail time to a maximum of 6 months. So you could knowingly have sex with someone and give them HIV. And before that was a big felony, now it's a misdemeanor, and you could spend 6 months after you permanently scar someone for life. And you could say, well, they can manage it. Like, dude, it's why would you make it less a penalty? Why would you make it less a penalty? And I can understand from the perspective that you're trying to, I don't know, make people feel less bad and make their lives easier if they're carrying that. But to expose someone to that is so heinous. It is so heinous. So it's just something that ignores the victim. It's something that totally ignores the victim. So this person who says that they would want to make drag time or drag or whatever something that you would make a requirement in school, and the drag time, story time, or whatever would satisfy that, so he can protect drag queens being around children, is someone who also wanted the penalties lowered and successfully got them lowered in California for knowingly exposing someone to HIV. And this person also got SB 145 passed. He authored that bill. And if you're unaware what that bill is, that was a bill that people were going around calling it the pro pedophile bill. So everyone was trying to do fact checks and saying that that is a QAnon conspiracy or whatever, that it's not decriminalizing people sleeping with minors. But their thing was that if you were doing like anal sex or oral things that would be like exclusive to like gay pedos, you get automatic sort of sentencing, where if a person who is a heterosexual person committing pedophilia on a minor, then being on the sex registry is something that's at the discretion of the judge. So they lowered the penalty for the homosexuals, so it would be at the judge's discretion, as opposed to just making it that everybody automatically gets on the list. So instead of being like, oh no, we're gonna hold the heterosexuals to the same standards you guys have been holding the homosexuals to, they're like, no, we're gonna make it so that it's leaner for the homosexuals. So I still think that's not great, but that's another bill that was passed successfully by Mr. Wieners. So there's a lot of people who go into politics, hopefully helping to make the world a better place. And I find his choice in legislation quite curious. I find it very curious. So when he says things like making offering drag queen curriculum K through 12, K through 12, K through 12. And Matt Walsh had retweeted him, and he's like, go this route, see what's gonna happen. Now there's people in California who also are just upset and kind of done with all the craziness, but I don't think they've truly breached that point. Like there was one point where they did like oust a school board somewhere, and there's some clapback in other places, but of course the recall on Newsom failed, and I don't know how far gone California is. It's pretty far gone. A lot of people have fled California, will continue to leave California, and hopefully they don't bring their same sort of California vibes and bad policies to other places, but they probably will because a lot of people don't learn their lessons. But I hope people wake up and they're like, I mean, he realize that there's some pretty weirdo people in government who really don't have the best interests of people, and especially their children at heart. Again, these are some very curious bills. Some people get into government so they can go and protect people's rights and their freedoms, and they will make sure that they lower taxes, and people can have easier lives, and maybe he feels like he's making those lives easier for a marginalized group of people. But I don't know, lowering the penalties for purposely explode knowingly, I guess I'll say knowingly instead of purposely, but knowingly exposing people to HIV is not something that I would vote someone to get in office for. So I just want you to be aware of the sort of people that hold legislative power across the country. And he's successfully gotten quite a few things passed that are kind of questionable. So this may be a joke, but it's also really weird, also really gross. And you shouldn't joke about things like that. Should not joke about things like that, especially as a person in authority voted by voters, and their salary is paid for with taxpayer dollars. Okay. Last thing I think I want to mention, we have all this talk about gun control, and I've mentioned this a few times. I really don't want to hear the president talk about it until he really acknowledges what happened with his son. And he lied on an ATF form. So when they were having a congressional hearing, or Senate hearing rather, for ATF, Senator Cotton did mention this. So I just want to remind people what he did.
But thank you. Mr. Chipman, you testified to Senator Lee that it's a serious felony to lie on a background check application. I agree. The ATF form 4473 asks, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to any drug or uncontrolled substance? If an applicant checks yes, they cannot purchase a firearm. On March 25th, Politico reported that Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, applied for a handgun that was later thrown in the trash and had to be recovered by Secret Service agents in 2018. Politico reported that Hunter Biden completed this background check and answered no to the question of whether he was an unlawful user of or addicted to any drug.
So it was a crazy story. You should, like, this is an interesting thing that they're covering at the hearing, but if you were unaware, Hunter Biden purchased a firearm. He filled out a form. He claimed he wasn't on drugs at the time. You have to check, like, are you addicted to any substances, which Cotton will go into. He obviously was, because he wrote about it in his book about his life. So it's basically there's this confession of a crime. But they like ditched the gun, and Secret Service had to pick it up, and they like did it in a trash like near a school or something like that. So very, very irresponsible gun handling here, on top of the law being broken to obtain that firearm, and Secret Service coming to clean up that mess. And again, Hunter Biden isn't the president, and so they are two different people, though they have shared the same bank account. And the president has accidentally paid for some of his escorts. But it's amazing how much lecturing the American people will get, and there's no accountability here because Hunter absolutely did commit a crime.
Hunter Biden has since published a book and gone on a nationwide book tour, conducting numerous interviews, stating that he was, in fact, very much addicted to drugs at the same time that he purchased this firearm. This would mean that by his own admission, Hunter Biden lied on that form and, by your earlier testimony, committed a serious felony. Should Hunter Biden be prosecuted for breaking this law?
Senator, thank you for your question. If I'm confirmed as ATF director, it will be my responsibility to enforce all federal laws without political favor. I do not know any factors in this particular case, but I am familiar with the press account of it.
Well, my understanding is the statute of limitation is only 5 years, and that this happened in 2018. Mr. Biden is obligated to keep a record of that form for up to 5 years himself. So this should be a fairly easy case to investigate. Can I get your commitment that if you are confirmed, you will in fact look into this matter and refer it for prosecution if you find that Hunter Biden violated the law?
Senator, what I will assure you is that if ATF director, I will ensure that all violations of law are investigated and referred. I'm not sure that it has not been investigated.
Well, I hope it has, and if the facts are as clear-cut as they appear to be, based on Mr. Biden's own admission, I would expect to see criminal charges forthcoming. But I would say that when a case is as high profile as this, if there is not an answer for the American people and public, it severely undermines the confidence in our gun laws, as well as the ATF and the Department of Justice, if there are not criminal consequences. I want
So, just a little spoiler alert, if you didn't know, he ended up withdrawing his nomination, so it did not work out for him. But also, spoiler alert, Hunter Biden still has not faced any penalties for a pretty clear-cut case of, yeah, he broke the law. So, I was looking through some tweets about that exchange, and people are like, "Oh, you shouldn't be able we shouldn't be prosecuting people who are just our political enemies." It's like a high-profile person admitted in his book to that he was had substance abuse, was using and stuff. He lied on his ATF form. So if you're going to talk about gun control and be the president, and your own son has admitted to being on drugs and stuff, and he obviously lied in his form. Statute of limitations hadn't passed at that time, and you're not gonna say anything or do anything and try to hold him accountable. At least pay the fine. You can at least pay the fine. Like, try to get people to be like, hey, I'm not saying he should try to do some kind of favoritism or stuff, but you could at least have them pay a fine as opposed to going to jail to show some kind of accountability on this issue. So I've said I don't want to hear anything from him until they address this, at least this. And again, I know it's not Biden himself, which Biden has said his own crazy stuff about, you don't need an AR-15, a shotgun. It's easier to use and easier to aim. And you can just go outside and just shoot it into the air. Just shoot it into the darkness. And whoever's out there, they'll be too afraid to come inside the house. Maybe because they're dead. Blew out their leg or their kneecap or something, or maybe you shot an animal or a small child or something while you're randomly blasting your gun outside. If you haven't seen that clip, it's wild. Actually, it went pretty viral because Schmoyo people actually did a song called "Buy a Shotgun." You guys should look it up on your own time. But I don't want to hear Biden talk much about it unless they at least address this, which they're not going to, because it's not about. It's about limiting your freedoms. Like, how much can they care about criminals and violent crime? And when they are not prosecuting these people, they're not putting them in jail, they're not giving them really, really harsh penalties. And it's not like Biden is unaware of how to do something about crime, because he authored the crime bill, which he's like the devil for doing and stuff now. But he knows how you can stop a lot of violent crime that's riddling cities. And you have all of these DAs who are corrupt, who are very soft on crime, who are just making it really, 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 really difficult to live in these cities. I talked yesterday about a person who got 5 months in juvie. They're 16, but he ran down a woman and her child. And then another person ran straight into him on purpose with a stolen car. And he has a prior record because he tried to roofie somebody or put someone in a girl's drink. So this is a violent person who's not being held accountable. And what's going to happen when they turn 18? There's gonna be like reformed and go out on the merry way after they've been very, very violent and attempted murder and has faced no real penalty for it. And I'm not saying that people can't be redeemed, but I just don't think that we are our government knows how to do that. I don't think our government knows how to do that. There's one thing else I wanted to show you guys before you go. MSNBC, people are really, this isn't new, but people are really mad about sites like Daily Wire getting more traction than them. And they're flat out calling it a threat to democracy. So there's this clip from MSNBC, Morning Joe, that I would like to show you.
Time and again, these social media companies are behaving in a way that we would never allow any other company to behave. And by that, I mean, 50% of Americans get their news from Facebook. Would we allow CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite in the 60s when he was so dominant in the 70s to deliberately spread lies, channel them through Russia, or deliberately spread healthcare lies? I think the government would pull their FEC license.
Okay, I just want to note right here that this is coming from MSNBC. MSNBC. Like Joy Reid is on this network. And Morning Joe has spread misinformation and stuff as well. Whether it was COVID and all. They are not innocent as far as spreading misinformation and just being wrong or just political hacks in some cases. And he's talking about they're on a network where they sometimes are just blatantly irresponsible. And he's talking about social media companies. Now, I understand that social media these days have a lot more power than their networks because not a lot of people are watching. And influencers like Joe Rogan have way more reach than the Mr. Morning Joe here. But it's just rich. It's just rich how much these people lie and how biased they are. But they're so angry that there's some traction somewhere, like on Facebook, and people will read stuff from like the Daily Wire, which they'll mention in a second. They're so angry about that when they have all these multiple networks and levers of power. and it's still not fair to them. It's still not fair to them. Let's keep watching.
Why can't we pass basic regulations to make these companies be more transparent about the algorithms that spread the lies on everything from COVID to January the 6th?
We absolutely should be able to pass them.
Okay. So Trump and other people were talking about trying to make things more transparent, but they wanted to free up people from being censored. So their end game was to help freedom. Their end game is to censor people who are their competition. Now, I understand people spread misinformation and they lie about stuff. And there's, for example, people talk about Russia and their influence on 2016 election and stuff. One thing that they spread as far as misinformation was they spread stuff about fracking because they don't want Americans to frack. So people were spreading Russian propaganda, and Russians were putting out propaganda about how bad fracking was because they don't want us to frack here because they want us to be dependent on foreign oil. But I don't see too many people complaining about the Russian plan to make us less independent on our own energy. I don't see people really saying that.
We actually have to pass them. I think these social media companies are in many ways the tobacco companies of this era. They're exploiting loopholes in the law to deeply damage America. It just connects to your cancer metaphor. Yes. And with little to no regulation. And so
cancer kills people, but okay. And you know what? Here, there was someone, I think it was on MSNBC, if not it was or CNN, but where a woman was saying that like a baby was just like a clump of cells with like abortion and stuff. Like people will spread such crazy misinformation, even like in Congress, will look you dead in your eye and say, "Yep, it's not a baby, man." And and women should be able to kill it. It's just all reproductive rights, and have whole conversations with you as if like a human being doesn't exist inside of you. But they don't think things like that are like misinformation or harmful, even though you're like justifying homicide, right? Like that's the whole point of that sort of misinformation. And it's just amazing that they don't think things that are pro their side can be harmful, because they're just empathy, empathy, empathy. And it doesn't matter if they're wrong or just blatantly lying to you. Gosh, and Joy Reid is a person who really, really pushes like the craziest stuff. And that's her network they're talking about. I mean, she had Kimberly Crenshaw on her show talking about critical race theory, and she's like, it's not in schools. I know this is a dumb question, but it's not in schools, right? And Miss Crenshaw was just like, I would know if it's in schools because I basically made it, right? When she's going around giving lectures about critical race theory inside. So it's not the full thing, but they're talking about how they are incorporating it in schools. She went on Joy's show to talk about it. And Joy actually tried to get her to denounce that it was like Marxism. And she asked her twice, and Kimberly Crenshaw did not deny that because it is tied to Marxism. But they are just an extension of the Democrat Party, and that's really why they want people censored. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and you can try to just supply people with actual, real, true information to debunk some of this stuff. But some of the stuff they tried to censor, as far as like with COVID, because they mentioned like COVID stuff spreading, like misinformation. But they're the ones who spread so much misinformation. And Fauci was wrong this day, that day. He spread misinformation, like masks are bad, masks are good, masks are like. I took off my mask now that we want everybody to not wear masks. Like so much stuff was shifting. But I'll give you an example of something. Like there were so many women talking about how vaccines and stuff were affecting their periods. So many women were saying that and giving their own personal testimony about stuff that, you know, they witnessed, they've experienced, their coworkers, their whatever. And you had I forget what kind of type of Jewish community it was, but they really, really monitor women's periods and stuff. And they're like, something is wrong, something is wrong, something is going on. But if you really talked about it, you got censored. And I know some people whose stuff was like their posts and stuff were taken down, or they were flagged or whatever, and they complained, and people would talk about it on TikTok and stuff would get taken down. Eventually, especially after the Joe Rogan interview with Robert Malone, that people were really freaking out about him. He was talking about mass formation psychosis, which I still have that video on here. Maybe I'll play it. But he mentioned how women's periods were being affected by the vaccines and stuff. And so not too long after he was on that interview, a report came out that yes, women's periods were affected by vaccines, but they're like, oh, but it's not a big deal. And they're like, we're so glad this study has come out now, because now women can know and confirm that they're not crazy, that this is actually happening. It's like, you could have just listened to women. They were telling you what was happening, but you were ignoring them because you're downplaying it because you didn't want people to not take it, I guess. But you could have tried to go with earlier and just been honest and be like, yes, it is a possibility that it is affecting you, but we believe that it's not going to be a big deal. Instead of like gaslighting people and pretending like it wasn't happening. So you have all these people. So you want people to censor stuff because information and COVID and blah, blah, for the good of the people. But what happens when the people who are censoring you are just wrong? And so we found that out. We saw that with COVID. We saw that with the Hunter Biden story, with the New York Post, with the laptop, which was totally real. And NPR and other folks were pretending like it didn't exist or wasn't true. And it was just salacious and fallacious, whatever the word is, like just making it seem like none of that stuff was true. When it was, and it wasn't stolen material. I understand people being skeptical about it. But again, I keep saying this, a lot of stuff that Hunter Biden did makes sense when you realize he's a crackhead. Okay, let's go ahead and finish watching.
You absolutely have to do it. The reason that it is hard is it is right now not in the interest of a lot of Republicans to do it. If you go to Facebook on a daily basis, the posts with the most engagement are from Dan Shapiro, are Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, Candace Owens. It is right-wing content. It dwarfs progressive content. It dwarfs mainstream media content, which is actually should be the part that scares us the most, that Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire has more followers and engagement, many times more than the New York Times or CNN. That is a problem for democracy.
So are you saying that, like, the Republican agenda is backed up by the freaks on Facebook, and so they don't want to do anything about it?
Absolutely. It is.
Just making sure.
Yes. To be very clear, is that Facebook is the most powerful messaging platform for the extreme MAGA message that benefits the Republicans. They have very little. They like to cry about Facebook and big tech, and then they just laugh their way to the bank when Facebook pushes their message, including the big lie, all across, into people's cerebrums all across this country.
So, to your point,
Y'all freaks, man. It's a problem for democracy that a lot of people listen to Dan Bongino, to Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. Even though Daily Wire is putting out stuff like What is a Woman documentary, which I think is very important for people to watch and see, or at least if you're not going to subscribe, there's plenty of clips and stuff. Or, I mean, keep listening to stuff like Black Tea. We talk about stuff that was in that documentary all the time. It's important for people to know stuff like that. It's important for people to know about stuff that happened in Loudoun County. It's important when you had them lying about what's happening in bathrooms. It's important for people to know that the White House coordinated with the DOJ. The White House coordinated with the National School Board Association to put out a letter requesting the DOJ for some kind of assistance using things like the Patriot Act on parents, like a parent in Loudoun County, because they use this example to kind of call them domestic terrorists, call them domestic terrorists, when that a particular father who made it in their footnotes was upset because his daughter was sexually assaulted in a bathroom, and he wanted to know why nothing was being done, and they literally lied about assaults in bathrooms at the meeting he was at. So it's important for people to know that kind of stuff. And if you're watching MSNBC, if you're watching CNN and stuff, they're still talking about QAnon and January 6th and all that other kind of stuff that is old news. I mean, it happened 2 years ago. They still wanted to be super, super, super relevant when people don't have money to put in their gas tank. They're so out of touch. They're so out of touch, and they're upset because you're not captivated with the information that they want to force feed down your throat. And that's why they want to control Facebook. And Facebook is no fan of the right. Like, if it gets engagement, that's good for Facebook, like in a just a sort of level, sort of playing field way that would be good for like your dollar. It would be the right, Ben Shapiro, stuff like that. That would be good for them. But they also do things like flag you and use the fact checkers to flag certain right-wing stuff. I've been flagged by fact checkers on things that I didn't even claim. They're like, oh, this is an article that seems like kind of like what you're talking about. And I'm like, it's not. And then they use that to kind of ding you and put you further on the discovery sort of thing. So I don't think and then there's been websites that have suppressed conservative voices. Like Steven Crowder was he discovered accidentally his site and his links and stuff were being suppressed. So he's involved in a lawsuit. So these guys don't like the right. They're not pushing their stuff because they're favorable to them. As a bottom line, people being engaging with their stuff on Facebook and other platforms, because not everybody bookmarks stuff like they used to on the web, and Facebook is a good hub of stuff that you're following and hopefully interested in with your likes and whatnot. If it's good for engagement, it's good, I guess, for their bottom line. But at the same time, they don't like folks like that. They're probably at this point a necessary evil, but that does not mean that they do things that support them and do things to make Ben Shapiro kind of more discoverable. And there are some people who are so far up that are harder for them to sort of touch because they have so much notoriety, and they could probably tweet and then get like an article written about Facebook or something like that. But then there's other people who are trying to rise up who get picked on a bit easier. So these people are crazy, and they're haters. Mika, Joe, Joy Reid, they're all just haters. And bringing on Raggedy Ann, as people like to call Jen Psaki sometimes, to MSNBC, that's not going to help them. That's not going to help them in the least bit. Doesn't it seem funny that she had all these like offers and she landed on MSNBC? Like, why would you want to go to MSNBC? The least serious place in news right now, like among like the major networks. I would not want to land at MSNBC. Maybe they gave her the sweetest deal, I assume, but that's not where I'd want to go if I wanted to have like a career in news and ratings. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that we have. Please check out different merchandise that we have on the website as well. Like the You Are Not That Special shirts, and I also got those in cute little mugs as well. I got the Make Crack Whack Again Trump 2024 shirt. My Money, My Business. We got the Constitution is Glorious Liberty document, and got some gender stuff you guys can get, like the Club XX lifetime membership, and some other kind of stuff as well. So please go to the website, check out what I got there. Please support the show. I think someone said peppermint patty. That's another one that people call Jen Psaki. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. I'm going to be working on a video that I'm going to drop soon that I think you guys will really, really like. So make sure that you are hitting notification bells, following, etc., doing all the things to make sure that you guys can see what we put out here at Black T News. I don't know if this person is still here, but someone from the Netherlands asked, like, do you think the U.S. needs more than just the two parties to choose from? And I'm pretty staunch Republican. Like, I know people are frustrated when they can't always have a better option, and it's either going to be a Democrat wins or Republican wins or etc. But I mean, we did have the Republican Party was a third party, and to end up snuffing out the Whigs became irrelevant. So I don't know. I think how we're kind of set up right now, it is just kind of a two-party system, and I don't know. I know a lot of people have a problem with it, but I just think if we have a new minority party, it'll eventually one will win out and the other, and then we'll just have two again. I think that's just kind of how it's baked in there. Anyway, hope that answers your question. God bless you guys.